Sam had lived in his small house for almost 10 years. It was not very big, but it was peaceful, with a wide yard and a tall wooden fence that gave him privacy. Behind that fence, he had a garden where he grew flowers, tomatoes, and even a few fruit trees. Every evening he liked to sit outside, enjoy the breeze, and look at what he had planted. To him, the fence was more than wood. It was the line that kept his little world calm and safe. One morning, while Sam was drinking tea on his porch, he heard a loud noise. It was the sound of heavy machinery. Confused, he rushed to the back of his yard. What he saw made his heart sink. His neighbor Karen had brought in a small bulldozer, and part of his wooden fence was already lying broken on the ground. "Stop! What are you doing?" Sam shouted as he ran closer. Karen, dressed neatly with sunglasses on, didn't even look guilty. She stood with her arms crossed and smiled as if nothing was wrong. "Relax, Sam. I'm just opening up the view. This fence blocks the beautiful sight of the hills. Don't you think it looks better without it?" Sam's jaw tightened. "That's my fence. You can't just tear it down because you want a better view." Karen waved her hand casually. "It's just a fence. Nobody cares about it. Besides, it was on the line between our properties. I was only helping us both." Sam knew Karen well enough. Since she had moved in 2 years ago, she had been known for loud parties, endless complaints, and strange demands. She often told people how things should look, even when it wasn't her business. Most neighbors tried to stay away from her, but Sam had always kept things polite. This, however, was too much. "I built this fence myself," Sam said firmly. "It stands on my side of the property. You had no right to touch it." Karen tilted her head and gave a little laugh. "Oh, come on, Sam, don't be so dramatic. You'll thank me later when you see how open it feels. Besides, nobody wants to stare at a boring wall of wood. You should be grateful I improved your yard." Sam took a deep breath. His garden was now exposed, and part of his fence lay in pieces. His fruit trees stood unprotected. He felt both angry and helpless. He wanted to argue, but he also knew Karen never listened. She had a way of twisting words until she made herself the hero. Later that evening, Sam sat on his porch again, staring at the broken section of fence. The sky turned orange as the sun went down, but instead of peace, his yard felt strange and open. He could hear Karen laughing on her patio, probably feeling proud of what she had done. For hours, Sam thought about what to do. Should he call the police? Should he argue more? Or should he rebuild the fence the same way and risk her bulldozing it again? None of those ideas seemed right. He wanted a solution that would not just fix the problem, but also teach Karen that actions have consequences. The next day, Sam went to the town office to confirm the property lines. The worker there checked the records carefully and gave Sam a copy of the official map. The fence was clearly on Sam's side. That meant Karen had no excuse for what she had done. As he walked home, an idea began to form in Sam's mind. It was bold, maybe even surprising, but it made him smile for the first time since the fence had been destroyed. If Karen wanted to play games with property lines, maybe it was time she learned how it felt when someone followed the rules more strictly than she ever expected. That night, Sam stood in his garden, looking at the broken fence. He imagined a new line, one that would give him more space and put Karen in a position she would never have guessed. The plan was simple but clever. All he had to do was build again, this time not on the old spot but exactly where the law allowed. As the moon rose above the hills, Sam nodded to himself. If she wants to improve her view, I'll give her something better. Let's see how. She likes it when the fence moves to her side. And with that thought, the real story began. The next morning, Sam woke up early. He could still hear Karen's voice in his head, the way she had laughed when she tore down his fence. That sound bothered him more than he wanted to admit. But instead of feeling frustrated, he decided he would act with patience and intelligence. Karen might have thought she won that day, but Sam knew there was a way to turn the situation in his favor. He went to the garage and took out his notebook. Sam had always liked to plan things carefully. He drew a map of his yard and the property lines. Every tree, flower bed, and pathway was marked. He measured the distance from the broken fence to the legal boundary. His idea began to take shape. If he rebuilt the fence not exactly where it had been but right along the true line, It would give him extra space and leave Karen with a surprise. Sam knew he needed supplies. He made a list: wooden panels, nails, screws, a post hole digger, and concrete for the posts. He also added a small toolbox for safety, gloves, and a hammer. Once the list was ready, he drove to the local hardware store. At the store, Sam quietly smiled as he imagined his plan working. The clerk helped him load everything into his truck. Sam carefully arranged the wood so it wouldn't get damaged. As he drove back, he rehearsed the steps in his head. Build straight. Stay on my side. Be patient, he told himself. Back home, Sam started early the next morning. He marked the ground with chalk to show exactly where the new fence posts would go. Each post would stand tall, straight, and strong. He measured twice, dug carefully, and poured concrete into each hole. Sweat ran down his forehead, but he kept working, thinking of the moment when Karen would see the finished fence. By noon, 3 posts were already in place. Sam stepped back and examined the line. It looked perfect. The new fence would be stronger and higher than the old one, and it would extend slightly into what had been a shared area, giving Sam a little more privacy. While Sam worked, Karen appeared on her patio, coffee cup in hand. She leaned over the railing and shouted, "Planning to fix that old fence? You should thank me for saving you the trouble of deciding where it goes." Sam didn't look up. He continued to hammer and measure. Karen's voice became louder, but he stayed focused. He knew she loved attention and would try to distract him. The more she yelled, the more Sam smiled inside. He knew she could not stop what he was doing, and soon she would see the results. By late afternoon, half of the fence panels were standing. Sam took a short break and drank water. He looked at Karen. She was frowning now, her arms crossed, clearly trying to figure out what he was doing. Sam held back a chuckle. The plan was working better than he expected. That evening, Sam made a quick dinner, thinking about the next day. He would finish the fence and paint it the same color as before. He also considered adding a small flower bed along his side of the line, something that would block Karen's view slightly and make the yard look even nicer. As he went to bed, Sam felt calm. This was not about revenge. It was about fairness, about showing that rules exist for a reason. He knew Karen had ignored them once, and now it was time to show what happened when someone respected the law and took action the right way. He imagined the moment when Karen would step outside and see the new fence in its full glory. She would not expect it. She would not have prepared for it. And in that moment, Sam would feel a quiet satisfaction, knowing he had handled the situation with patience, intelligence, and a sense of humor. Sam fell asleep with a small smile on his face. The plan was simple, but the execution had to be perfect. By morning, the fence would be almost done, and Karen would soon discover that sometimes following the rules is more powerful than shouting or using machines to get what you want. Tomorrow would be the day the balance shifted, and Sam would take back what was always his with calm and clever hands. The next morning, Sam woke up with determination. Today he would finish the new fence. He looked outside and saw that Karen was already up, pacing on her patio with a coffee cup in hand. She seemed to be watching him carefully, her eyes following every movement. Sam smiled quietly. Let her watch. He was ready for this. Sam started by preparing the remaining posts. He checked each one to make sure it was straight and solid. Then he dug holes along the chalk line he had drawn the day before. Each hole was deep and precise, holding the promise of a fence that would not wobble or fall. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but he ignored it, focused entirely on the task at hand. As he worked, Karen called out, "Do you need help? I can get someone to finish it faster." Sam shook his head without turning. "No thanks, Karen. I like doing it myself." He knew that if he gave her attention, she would try to interfere. The best approach was to keep calm and stay focused. Karen had used her bulldozer before because she wanted instant results, but Sam was working slowly and correctly. His way was stronger and would last longer. By late morning, the fence had grown steadily taller. Sam carefully attached each wooden panel, checking the alignment with a spirit level to make sure it was perfect. Each panel fit snugly into place, and with each one, Sam felt a small satisfaction. The fence was no longer just a boundary. It was a statement. Karen, still on her patio, frowned as she leaned over the railing. She muttered something under her breath and waved her hands in frustration. Sam noticed but continued without stopping. He even added a small layer of soil along the base of the posts where he planned to plant flowers. That would make the fence look more natural and create a gentle barrier that blocked some of Karen's view without being mean. Around noon, a neighbor walked by and waved. "That fence is going up fast, Sam. It looks very strong." "Thanks," Sam said with a nod. "I want to make sure it lasts a long time." The neighbor smiled and walked on. Sam returned to his work, feeling even more determined. Karen was still watching, but she did not realize that each panel brought her closer to seeing the results she had never expected. By afternoon, the fence was nearly complete. The final panels were heavy, but Sam lifted them carefully, securing each one into place. When the last post was set and all the panels attached, Sam stepped back. The fence was perfect. It was tall, straight, and stronger than the old one. It also extended slightly further into what had been a shared space, giving Sam more privacy and subtly reminding Karen that the line had rules she could not ignore. Sam added the finishing touches. He painted the fence a warm brown to match the old style and planted small flowers along his side. They were bright and cheerful, and soon they would grow to add beauty as well as a little screen for extra privacy. Karen had been watching the whole time, pacing and frowning. When Sam finally stepped back, she could not believe her eyes. The fence stood proudly, taller and straighter than before, and completely on Sam's side of the property. She tried to speak, but no words came. "Out." Sam smiled calmly, enjoying the quiet satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. For a moment, Karen looked around, realizing that her view was not improved at all. In fact, the fence blocked part of what she had wanted to see, and she could not complain because everything Sam had done was completely legal and fair. Sam waved lightly. "It's finished. I hope it works for both of us." Karen crossed her arms and muttered under her breath. Sam returned to his tools, cleaning them and putting them away. He felt no anger now, only a sense of quiet victory. By following the rules and working carefully, he had solved the problem without any conflict. As evening approached, the yard looked peaceful again. The fence was solid, the flowers bright, and Sam's garden felt safe. Karen had gone inside, probably thinking about the situation, and Sam knew she would be more careful next time. He sat on his porch, sipping tea, and admired his work. The fence was more than wood and nails. It was proof that patience, planning, and calm intelligence could handle even the most difficult neighbors. Sam smiled to himself. The fence had been rebuilt, the garden protected, and the lesson quietly learned. Everything was finally back in order. The morning after the new fence was complete, Sam woke up feeling calm and satisfied. His yard looked neat and protected. The flowers he had planted were still small, but their bright colors added life along the edge of the fence. He enjoyed the quiet moment, knowing the garden was finally safe from interference. As he sipped his coffee on the porch, he saw Karen stepping outside. She wore her usual sunglasses and held her phone, likely ready to take pictures or call someone to complain. But today, her face showed confusion. She stopped at the edge of her yard and stared at the fence. Sam could not help but smile quietly. Karen had just realized that the fence had moved slightly, and it now gave Sam extra space. Her property line no longer allowed her to claim any part of his yard. Her plan to improve the view had backfired without a single argument. Karen walked closer to the fence, inspecting it. She tapped the wood with her fingers, checking for weaknesses, and looked up at the straight, tall posts. Her frown deepened as she noticed how perfectly everything was aligned. The fence looked stronger than before. She had expected it to be small, weak, or even unfinished. Instead, Sam had built it exactly along the legal line, and it was flawless. Sam stepped out and waved casually. "Good morning, Karen. I finished the fence. I hope it works for both of us." Karen froze. She opened her mouth but found no words. She could not deny that the fence was completely legal. She could not say it was crooked or poorly built. Sam had followed the rules perfectly. Finally, she muttered, It looks different. I thought it would. Sam smiled. I know you wanted a better view, but the property line is clear. I built it on my side where it belongs. Karen crossed her arms. She was still upset, but she had no choice. The fence was there, solid and immovable, and Sam had done everything correctly. Sam could tell she was frustrated because her plan had failed, and there was nothing she could do about it. Over the next few days, Karen watched Sam carefully. She tried small tactics to influence him. She shouted suggestions, offered help, and even tried to question his measurements, but Sam remained calm. He ignored the distractions and focused on keeping his yard neat and protected. Meanwhile, the flowers along the new fence started growing. They created a soft border, adding beauty to Sam's garden. The fence was no longer just a boundary. It was a gentle but clear reminder that rules mattered, and patience could achieve results more powerful than force. One afternoon, Karen approached Sam. She looked hesitant, almost apologetic. Sam, I didn't mean to upset you before, she said slowly. Sam looked at her calmly. I understand, Karen, but fences have rules. If we follow them, both of our yards can be safe and fair. Karen nodded. Though she did not fully smile, she realized that Sam had handled everything better than she had expected. Instead of shouting, threatening, or reacting with anger, he had used patience, intelligence, and the law to protect his property. The situation began to change. Karen no longer tried to interfere with Sam's yard. She still wanted the perfect view, but she understood that she could not break rules to get it. Slowly, a sense of respect grew, though she would never say it aloud. Sam, meanwhile, continued his routine. He watered the garden, trimmed the trees, and checked the fence regularly. Each time he looked at it, he felt satisfaction, knowing he had solved the problem calmly. He had turned a conflict into a lesson, both for himself and for Karen. By evening, the yard felt peaceful again. The sun set behind the hills, casting warm light across the fence and the flowers. Sam sat on his porch sipping tea and watched the colors reflect on the wood. Karen was inside now, probably thinking about the situation and realizing she could not control everything. Sam smiled quietly. He had handled a difficult neighbor with intelligence and patience. The fence was strong, the garden safe, and the lesson quietly learned. He knew that by following rules and staying calm, he could solve even the most frustrating problems without creating more conflict. For the first time in weeks, Sam felt truly relaxed. He looked at his yard, the flowers, and the straight, tall fence. Everything was in order, and he knew that the balance had finally been restored. A few days after the new fence was complete, Karen seemed calmer at first. She no longer shouted from her patio or tried to distract Sam while he worked in his yard. But Sam knew her well. Karen was not someone who gave up easily. She wanted control over everything she could see, and she had a habit of testing boundaries whenever she could. That morning, Sam noticed something unusual. Karen had brought out a small ladder and was leaning it against a tree that grew near the edge of her property. From her position, she could peek slightly over Sam's fence. She appeared to be examining the fence carefully, perhaps looking for a way to claim it was too tall or had been built incorrectly. Sam chuckled quietly. He had expected this. Karen always tried to find a loophole or bend the rules to her advantage. But Sam had built the fence carefully, following the exact measurements and keeping everything on his side of the property line. There was no mistake, no excuse, and no weak spot. Karen muttered to herself as she stepped back from the ladder. She paced along the fence line, thinking. Sam continued working in his garden, planting a few more flowers along the edge to create a natural border. He knew that a visual barrier would help prevent Karen from spying into his yard. After a while, Karen walked over to the fence again. This time, she tried to speak in a friendly tone. Sam, maybe we can find a way to share the view. I mean, the hills are beautiful, and it would be nice if we both could see them. Sam looked up, smiling calmly. Karen, the fence is built according to the property line. You can see as much as the rules allow. I think it is already fair for both of us." Karen's frown deepened. She had expected him to argue or give in, but Sam remained patient and polite. That made her realize she could not push him easily. He had planned carefully, followed the rules, and now he had the upper hand. Determined, Karen tried a different tactic. She started trimming a tree near the fence, thinking that if she removed a few branches, she could improve her view without touching the fence. Sam noticed and walked over. "Karen, be careful with that tree. It is on your side, but if you trim too much, it could fall on the fence or damage the plants I put along the edge." Karen huffed. "I'm just making sure I can see the hills. I am not touching your property." Sam nodded. "I know, just make sure it stays safe." Karen paused for a moment, realizing that Sam was calm and rational. He was not angry, not threatening, just observing carefully. That calmness made it harder for her to argue. She muttered under her breath and went back inside, clearly frustrated that her plans were not working. Sam returned to his garden and continued planting. He thought about how Karen always tried to control what she could see, but he had taken the right approach. By following the rules, staying calm, and adding small touches to his yard, he had made sure that the fence was not just a barrier of wood, but a boundary that protected his space while respecting the law. Later in the afternoon, a neighbor walked by and complimented Sam on the new fence. "It looks excellent, Sam. Very strong and well built." "Thank you," Sam replied. "I wanted it to be fair and safe." As the day ended, Karen was gone from her patio. Sam could tell she was thinking about the situation and realizing that she could not manipulate him as she had hoped. The fence was done perfectly, and every action Sam had taken was legal and correct. She had no way to complain without looking unreasonable. Sam watered the garden one last time and admired his work. The fence was tall, straight, and beautiful. The flowers softened the edges and made the yard feel peaceful again. Karen's attempts to outsmart him had failed. Patience, careful planning, and respect for the rules had won the day. As the sun set behind the hills, Sam felt a sense of calm satisfaction. The fence was not just wood and nails. It was a symbol of fairness, intelligence, and quiet determination. No matter what Karen tried next, Sam knew he could handle it the right way. A week after the new fence was completed, Sam's yard had settled into calmness. The flowers along the edge had started to bloom, and the wooden panels gleamed in the sunlight. For the first time in weeks, Sam felt at peace. He thought Karen had finally realized that the fence was legal, strong, and perfectly positioned. That afternoon, Sam was trimming a small hedge near the corner of the yard when he noticed Karen acting strangely. She was carrying a large bag of mulch and stepping carefully around her side of the property. At first, Sam thought she was planting flowers, but then he realized her movements were unusual. She was walking very close to the fence, almost touching it and looking for gaps between the posts. Sam stopped trimming and watched. Karen paused near one section and squatted down, apparently inspecting the base of the fence. Sam shook his head. He had expected her to be upset, but he had not expected her to try sneaky tactics. She seemed determined to find any small flaw she could use. Karen suddenly straightened and called, "Sam, maybe the fence needs some fixing. It looks uneven here. Are you sure it is stable?" Sam smiled calmly. "Yes, Karen. I measured everything carefully. The fence is solid and perfectly aligned. You don't need to worry." Karen narrowed her eyes. She stepped closer, pretending to examine the fence again. "I just want to make sure. Maybe a few boards need tightening. It would be safer for everyone." Sam took a deep breath and decided it was time to set the boundary clearly. He walked to the corner of the fence and said, "Karen, this fence is on my property line. You cannot touch it or try to move it. It is built according to the law and the proper measurements. If you want to change your view, you have to do it from your side of the line." Karen's face turned red with frustration. "You're so stubborn. I only wanted a little improvement. Why do you make such a big deal out of it?" Sam remained calm. "Because it is my property, Karen. I follow the rules. You should too." Karen stomped her foot, muttering angrily, and finally left, carrying her bag of mulch back inside. Sam went back to his hedge, trimming carefully. He knew she might try something again, but this time he was prepared. Over the next few days, Karen's Frustration became obvious to the neighbors. She tried small tactics like leaning over her patio or placing decorations near the fence to block Sam's view. But each time, Sam remained calm and polite. He ignored distractions, continued gardening, and kept the fence and yard in perfect order. One morning, Sam decided to reinforce the fence further. He added small decorative caps on top of the posts and planted taller flowers along the edge. This gave him extra privacy and added beauty to the yard. When Karen saw the flowers growing taller, she scowled. Her plan to improve her view had failed, again. Sam realized that Karen's behavior was not about the view at all. It was about control. She wanted to influence everything she could see, and she disliked when someone else followed the rules better than she did. But Sam was patient and clever. He had built the fence correctly, strengthened it, and even made it more beautiful than before. By the end of the week, Karen had stopped trying to interfere openly. She still watched occasionally, but Sam could tell she had learned a quiet lesson. No matter how clever or pushy she tried to be, following the rules, staying calm, and taking thoughtful action could not be beaten. That evening, Sam sat on his porch, sipping tea, and admired the yard. The fence stood tall and strong. The flowers swayed in the breeze. His garden was protected, and the sense of peace had returned. He knew Karen had tested him, but he had handled the situation with patience, intelligence, and fairness. As the sun set behind the hills, Sam smiled. The yard was safe, the fence was legal and beautiful, and the lesson was quietly clear. Cleverness and patience can win against arrogance and shortcuts. Karen had pushed too far, and Sam had shown that following the right path always works in the end. The following week, Sam's yard looked perfect. The new fence stood straight and tall, the flowers along the base were blooming beautifully, and the garden was peaceful. Sam had returned to his routine, watering the plants, trimming the hedges, and enjoying quiet evenings on his porch. It was hard to believe that just a few weeks ago his yard had been in chaos because of Karen. Karen, on the other hand, seemed more subdued. She no longer shouted from her patio or tried to manipulate the fence. The neighbors noticed her walking carefully along her side of the yard, occasionally glancing toward Sam's fence with a frown. She was no longer bold or pushy. Something had changed. One afternoon, Sam was planting a row of small shrubs near the edge of the yard. Karen appeared at her patio railing, holding a watering can. She hesitated for a moment, then called out, "Sam, I wanted to ask something. The fence looks very nice. Did you build it all by yourself?" Sam looked up and smiled politely. "Yes, I did. I wanted it to be strong and well-aligned. It took some time, but it was worth it." Karen nodded slowly. She seemed unsure how to continue. "I guess I didn't understand before. I thought I could just improve my view, but now I see you followed the rules and made everything fair." Sam continued planting and replied calmly, "Karen, fences are about boundaries, and boundaries are important. Everyone has a right to their space. That includes your yard and mine." Karen's face softened. For the first time, she seemed to reflect on her behavior. She realized that Sam had acted patiently and correctly, even when she tried to push him. His calm approach had shown her that rules and fairness were more important than short-term convenience or selfish demands. "Suppose I got carried away," Karen said quietly. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just thought it would be easier if the fence was lower or moved." Sam nodded. "I understand, Karen. But now that the fence is done, we both have clear boundaries. You can enjoy your view, and I can enjoy my garden. It works for both of us if we respect it." Karen looked at the tall wooden panels and the bright flowers along the base. She noticed how neat everything was, how carefully the shrubs were planted, and how the yard looked calm and inviting. She realized that Sam's careful work had created beauty, safety, and fairness all at once. "I see that now," she admitted. "I guess I should be more careful about how I act in the future." Sam smiled gently. "It's never too late to learn. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is how we handle them afterward." Over the next few days, Karen started behaving differently. She no longer tried to interfere with Sam's yard. She focused on her own garden, planting flowers and trimming trees carefully. Occasionally, she waved to Sam from her patio, and he waved back. The tension that had existed for weeks slowly disappeared. One evening, Sam sat on his porch, sipping tea, watching the sunset over the hills. The fence stood proudly along the property line, protecting his garden and adding beauty to the yard. Karen was inside, probably thinking about the lessons she had quietly learned. Sam felt a sense of calm satisfaction. He had handled a difficult situation with patience, intelligence, and fairness. He had solved the problem without anger, conflict, or revenge. From that day on, the fence became more than just a barrier. It was a symbol of respect, lawfulness, and quiet strength. Sam knew that when someone tried to push boundaries, the best response was careful planning, patience, and calm action. Karen had tried to change the rules to suit herself, but in the end, she learned that fairness could not be ignored. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Sam felt peace. The yard was safe, the garden was protected, and the fence stood as a clear line between property and pride. Karen had learned her lesson, and Sam had proved that intelligence and patience always triumph over force and arrogance. For Sam, life returned to its quiet rhythm. The flowers bloomed, the trees swayed in the breeze, and the fence stood tall, a reminder that fairness and careful action create lasting harmony. And with that, the story came to a peaceful close, leaving both yards secure, both neighbors wiser, and the garden more beautiful than ever.